closed above him, down into a gentle ecstasy of death. The scientific romances had established Wells's reputation as a great populist, but now he wanted to be taken seriously.
He channeled his literary writing into books that he thought would be taken more seriously. I think maybe Tono Bungay and the New Machiavelli are his best novels in a literary sense. And I suppose it's like, if you look at just pictures of him throughout his life, he got kind of bloated and puffy, and so did his prose.
You may think me superstitious, if you will, and foolish, but indeed I am more than half convinced that he had in truth an abnormal gift and a sense, something I know not what, that in the guise of wall and door offered him an outlet, a secret and peculiar passage of escape into another and altogether more beautiful world.
In many ways, of course, Wells had already made his great escape. The days of poverty and obscurity were now far behind him. Over the next half-century, he remained one of the most famous men in the world. Not just a science fiction pioneer, but a socialist radical, a dystopian prophet, a feminist champion, an all-round literary celebrity. And yet, for all his fame and for all his money, there always remained, I think, something restless about him, something dissatisfied, not just with the 20th century, but perhaps also with himself. I just wonder whether from time to time he too caught a glimpse of that door in the wall, a glimpse of another world, perhaps also another Wells that might have been.
He was comparing himself against Henry James and Ford Madox Ford and thinking, you know, why are they being treated so much more seriously? I tell you what, I bet Henry James and Ford Madox Ford sat around saying, why aren't our books selling as well as War of the Worlds?
As the Victorian age gave way to the 20th century, the wheels of progress turned ever faster, and Wells soon found himself in a world where science fiction was becoming scientific fact.
He wanted his writing to be useful, to do something. He doesn't want a novel to be like a great painting or to be like a great cathedral. He wants art to be like a marketplace or a road. It can be beautiful, but it can also do something. It can be useful as well.
By the end of his life, Wells's warnings about the abuse of science had come true. He had foreseen the horrors of aerial warfare and the atomic bomb. Atrocities carried out not by Morlocks or by Martians, but by modern man. H.G. Wells died on the 13th of August 1946. He left a world that he'd always feared, a ravaged dystopia brought to its knees by the effects of war. But in his final years, Wells also left a slim volume called The Rights of Man that would become the inspiration for one of modern history's most important documents, the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
And when the architects of the Rights of Humanity Declaration came to do their work, they relied heavily on Wells's text. So if nothing else, even if all his literature and the details of his life vanished tomorrow, just that one achievement, I think, will live forever.
More than any other writer of his generation, the boy from Bromley left an indelible mark on the modern age. I think in his bones, Wells was always a son of southern England, a man shaped by the small towns and suburbs of the home counties. And yet his ideas had a genuinely global impact. And whether you're in Bromley or in Woking, in Sevenoaks or in Folkestone, if you dream of another world, then it's the words of H.G. Wells. It's the power of the story that will sweep you through time and space to the very furthest reaches of the imagination.
I think Wells did so many amazing things, but at the end of the day, I would go along with the Argentinian author Jorge Luis Borges when he said that ultimately the early science fiction stories will become part of human mythology. You know, when the English language is dead, when our era's forgotten about, and there's probably some guys living in domes in the Arctic Circle somewhere, they'll between the story of the time machine and the space invasion. You know, these are stories, the Invisible Man, these will go on forever. They're bigger than the English language.
He was a man ahead of his time. By several decades, he was sort of forging the staples of what we came to consider to be, you know, the signifiers of science fiction as a literary genre.
You remember him for the scientific romances. All the other stuff is kind of interesting, but it's a support to the books.
And at the heart of Wells's stories is a message that will never grow old. That however advanced our technology, however spectacular our achievements, we must always remember one thing. We are only human.
Managing your projects should feel more like this. That's why you need ClickUp. With ClickUp,
you.